The Electric Reliability Council of Texas, ERCOT, shows in its most recent large load working group 438,000 megawatts of loads seeking interconnection to the Texas grid between now and 2032. Such interconnection numbers live in what I call stupid land. That magnitude of load will never all come online within that time frame, and there are a lot of speculative projects in there. Plus, there simply isn't sufficient material in this global supply chains to support those volumes, in addition to large loads seeking interconnection to other utilities around the world. However, a significant portion of it may actually materialize, and ERCOT planners have been struggling to address the issue of interconnection, in short, how to reliably connect new loads to the grid without breaking it, for some time. These new large loads, mainly data centers, have come in so quickly with these applications in recent years that planners have been stuck with a conundrum. Under the existing process, each transmission or distribution company conducts its own individual study, after which ERCOT reviews those studies singularly, attempting to determine how the new loads will impact power flows, what new transmission equipment will be required, and who will pay for it. But with so many applications popping up so quickly, the outcomes of these studies keep morphing, requiring sequential evolutions and repeated studies that have led to growing backlog. Thus, after some consideration, ERCOT decided to develop a batch planning process, essentially hoovering up a bunch of these projects, assigning them to a group, and then evaluating the system impacts of that aggregation. This new so-called Batch Zero process in Planning Guide Revision Request, PGRR 145, was introduced in March. The goal is to speed up the process, making it more efficient, transparent, and equitable, while weeding out weaker and more speculative projects that drain scarce planning resources and, frankly, waste everybody's time. PGGR 145 would submit developers looking to connect loads north of 75 megawatts to revised eligibility criteria. These largely boil down to stricter proof of financial maturity and financial strength. In early June, ERCOT's board voted to proceed with the new approach, with the first combined study referred to as Batch Zero. The next step is a Public Utility Commission of Texas vote on June 18th. Batch Zero is meant to be the initial transition to a continuous batch study approach in the future governing large loads, similar to the cluster study approach for new supply assets in markets that have been established to make supply asset interconnection queues more efficient. Here, it would allow ERCOT to allocate transmission capacity and plan system upgrades in a more coordinated way. To join Batch Zero, project developers must submit detailed project information to their transmission or distribution utilities by July 10th, confirming control of sites with either leases or ownership of property, while also disclosing whether they are pursuing additional interconnection requirements in ERCOT or elsewhere in order to avoid double counting. They'll also have to deliver documents concerning regulatory approvals and anticipated engineering services. And finally, they must meet financial security requirements that have them posting $50,000 per megawatt of new or expanded requests with the interconnecting transmission or distribution provider. ERCOT will then have until January 29th of next year to develop and deliver the Batch Zero interconnection study results that would include annual capacity allocations to each applicant through 2032, as well as suggested transmission improvements and related contribution and aid of construction CIAC costs to be paid for these upgrades. Just 2 months later, on March 1st, the interconnecting large load entities, the ILLEs, yep, there's a term for them, they'll have to formally accept their capacity allocations and commit to move forward to a refinement study phase. Armed with those inputs, the schedule then calls for ERCOT to deliver an iterative refinement study only 3 months later in June that will finalize the exact transmission facility improvements and the cost estimates required for the committed loads. After that, developers will sign interconnection agreements with the transmission and distribution service providers, the ones who own the wires, and pay non-refundable interconnection fees of $50,000 per megawatt of peak demand, and that can come from their initial deposits. At that signing, the ILEs will also have to cover all direct CIAC costs. The CIAC provision matters because under the old way of doing things, utilities often provided allowances to developers to offset costs of expanding infrastructure such as substation upgrades to serve these new loads. No more. Developers now have to pay 100% of all directly related costs, and utilities aren't allowed to attempt to recover any of such costs through rate base. nor can they commence any infrastructure upgrade work until the CIAC is fully paid. So only truly capitalized projects can move forward, and other ratepayers are protected. Furthermore, any companies failing to meet milestones or bringing facilities online per schedules are subject to losing their transmission capacity. The stringent requirements included here, both planning and financial, should do a pretty good job of weeding out the speculative phantom loads that have been clogging up the queues. The approach might also create competition for scarce transmission resources, especially where they're currently constrained. This new batch approach should tell us a lot, both in ERCOT and perhaps extrapolated more nationally, about which loads are real and which are speculative. It should also give us a better sense as to what can practically be connected to the existing and expanded ERCOT transmission system, finally pulling us out of today's stupid land into something more rational. These results may also provide some valuable lessons to other utilities and grid operators, all of whom have never seen loads of this magnitude with such urgency to connect. And the utilities till now and grid operators, they've pretty much been making this up as they go along in a very reactive fashion. So this may change that, or at least provide some positive steps in that direction. Well, thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon.